Hello, I wanted to tell you something about how I came to write The Age of Treachery and the series of Duncan Forrester mystery thrillers that follow it. I was inspired by the images from the 1940s of a snowbound Britain and was imagining the soldiers who came home from the war having defeated Nazi Germany and finding that the country that they'd fought for was cold, dark and broke. My own father served with the Royal Air Force in North Africa, Sicily, Italy, Austria and Palestine. And I wanted to create a hero who'd been with the Special Operations Executive, had served in most of the theatres of World War II in Europe, and who has returned to an exhausted land. So was born Duncan Forrester, a specialist in ancient history, who had abandoned academic life to join the war effort in 1939, and who, now that the war is over, is eager to put bloodshed and conflict behind him and return to the peaceful cloisters of Oxford University. But it is not to be. A colleague is murdered, his best friend is accused of the murder, and Forrester has to set out across a snowbound Britain to find out what really happened. His investigations take him to the Eagle and Child pub in Oxford, where he meets C.S. Lewis before he had written the Narnia books, J.R. Tolkien while he was still writing The Lord of the Rings, and an X-ray crystallography student called Margaret Roberts, who later was to marry a businessman called Dennis Thatcher and become Prime Minister of Britain. This will be one of the features of the novels, the idea of my hero encountering the real people, people of whom you have heard, as they were at the time when the novel takes place. So also in Oxford in 1946 was a flamboyant young literature student named Kenneth Tynan, who later became one of Britain's preeminent literary critics. Anyway, the trail leads Forrester to London, where among old colleagues in wartime intelligence he meets the foreign editor of the Sunday Times, none other than Ian Fleming, before he had written James Bond. From here he flies to the ruins of Berlin, the original ground zero of destruction, and seeks for clues amidst the debris of the Nazi Empire he helped to destroy. And in a nightclub hidden in the ruins discovers that the key is concealed within an ancient Viking manuscript, which in turn leads him to an estate above a fjord in Norway and the second great love of his life, a countess named Sophie Arnfeldt Larvig. The Age of Treachery is, as I say, the first in a series of novels in which I'll follow Duncan Forrester from the mid-1940s as he plunges into the great events of the post-war era, during which Britain gets involved with the Cold War, faces up to the demolition of the empire, becomes a nuclear power, and at the same time finds that it has all the consumer goods that led the Prime Minister of the period to say you've never had it so good, while teetering on the brink of Armageddon. The Duncan Forrester mysteries I plan to be firmly grounded in the history of the years following World War II, and his adventures will bring him into contact with many of the people who shaped that era, from George Orwell to Thor Heyerdahl, Nikita Khrushchev, Iris Murdoch, Edmund Hillary, Alfred Hitchcock, David Ben-Gurion, John Fowles, Charles de Gaulle, Peter Sellers, Harold Wilson, and the young John Lennon. I hope you enjoy The Age of Treachery and want to follow the further journeys of Duncan Forrester as he witnesses and is part of the creation of the world we live in today.